Yeah, pause YouTube. SixftHax here. What's up? How's it going, everybody? Hopefully, you guys did enjoy our run through the P4G this season. This time around, we're able to go to the very end and win it all for our 5th championship, which was very awesome. I want to say thank you to everybody who did follow me through the season. Thank you to everybody who maybe came to the channel halfway through the season, near the end of the season. Regardless of whenever you came here, thank you so much for being a part of the Durham Druddigon Nation, and thank you for being able to celebrate the championship victory. So what I want this video to be is just kind of like recapping the season and talking about like future draft league stuff that's going to be coming to the channel, as well as kind of like going over our draft. Because for those of you who may not know, this time around, the P4G decided to do tier 3 and below. That means any tier 4, any tier 2 and tier 1 Pokemon were completely banned. So it was basically a lower tier draft in a sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this little replica thing down. It's not even a real replica. I just like to have that for fun. But yeah, man, like I want to have fun. I just feel like just kind of showing the championship is a little fun. Also, for those of you who may be wondering, I will be doing a recap of my GBA D League season 4. What's season 4? Yeah, season 4. And I may actually do that a little bit differently because I really want to talk about my draft in general in this season of the D League. But we'll worry about that tomorrow or whenever this will be going up. This should be going up hopefully on Tuesday. I woke up today extremely exhausted and out of energy, and I don't know why, but hopefully I will try to get this up on Tuesday just to kind of continue the daily uploads and stuff. So if this is up a little bit late, I do apologize, but regardless, I hope you guys do enjoy. If you did enjoy our run, make sure to hammer arm that thumbs up button down below. By the time this goes up, or hopefully by tomorrow if anything, we'll have a list of all our matches from the season down in the description, so you guys can go check out the season this season. And then if you want to, you can go check out season 2 as well, where we were able to finish the entire league at #1 and make it to the first round of the playoffs. And then things happened, and yeah, so yeah, I guess that's a little introduction things out of the way. If you guys may have missed the finals, then definitely go check it out. My stuff is messed up for a second here, so yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, go ahead and check out the finals if you guys have not seen it already. We did end up facing Joey, Pokeaim, MD. So the main thing I want to do about this video is just kind of, again, recap the season and talk about our draft that we had and my thoughts on like lower tier drafts in general. So obviously in lower tier drafts, certain Pokemon are giant threats compared to how they typically are in regular drafts in general. So for example, in the P4G, I was lucky enough to have the #1 pick overall, and I decided to go with a Mon that I thought would be really effective in the format. And as you can see here, that was Nidoking. Now Nidoking definitely proved its worth throughout the season. It was an absolute monster, including the playoff games. I think I ended up bringing Nidoking about 12 different times, and for the most part I think it was actually my kill leader, if I'm not mistaken. I hope this actually, does this show up fine? Yeah, okay, so it should be showing up fine here. So here we have well, if you include the playoff games, this should be 12, but as you can see here, Nidoking was a giant monster. And if we look through the teams here, it did come a good majority of the time. There were 2 forfeit wins that we got, and then I think we had 2 or 3 meme games, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't really want to focus on the meme games or the forfeit wins, obviously. And if we don't count those games, then Nidoking was definitely a monster. Nidoking in this type of format is a Pokemon that basically functions like Kyurem Black in a regular draft league. Kyurem Black is an absolutely terrifying breaker in draft league. That thing comes in, you click a move, you 2-hit KO just about everything, or you're hitting something extremely hard, and your opponents need to prepare around that, and they need to prep for that. And that's basically how Nidoking functioned in the P4G, although it did have a couple of things over Kyurem Black in the sense that it wasn't weak to Stealth Rocks. It got entry hazards of its own, which it was able to set up hazards quite a few times. I do remember bringing Stealth Rock Nidoking to a couple games, and then because of its giant move pool, it could take advantage of physical, special, and even mix sets very well, as well as having a priority in the form of Sucker Punch, which I did bring Sucker Punch Nidoking Nidoking quite a few times. I'm not gonna lie, but Nidoking was definitely a monster. Something that really surprised me though, and something that I do have to give a huge thanks to my boy Zazo, aka Iron Flash Gaming, was Noivern. Nate the Noivern was very surprising to me this season. The funny thing is that Noivern came more times than Heracross came to this season, and I honestly thought that Nidoking and Heracross were gonna be brought like every single week, but Nidoking was brought basically every single week. Heracross wasn't, and Noivern ultimately ended up being brought more than Heracross was, because the great thing about Noivern in this format, tier 3 and below, is that there is a very big lack of fairy types and steel types, and its speed tier is absolutely phenomenal. It's base 123, which means it's able to outspeed so many different things, and at times it was able to easily just run like a modest set. It was able to run Choice Scarf quite a few times. Actually, I really enjoyed Choice Scarf Noivern just because of how speedy it was, while still being able to hit extremely hard on the especially offensive side, because again, the lack of steel types and the lack of fairy types, I think, is what really ended up helping out Noivern probably be brought more than Heracross. I think the main thing about Heracross and what really hindered it was basically its speed tier, and the fact that it needed a turn in order to really be an aggressive threat. As where Nidoking has the same speed tier as Heracross, Nidoking still was able to just immediately punch a hole into something, but Heracross had to wait a turn before its Flame Orb activated, or Scarf was just not fast enough or strong enough in certain matchups. So those three mons I definitely think were the most valuable Pokemon throughout our entire run this league. This season was absolutely amazing. We had a bunch of awesome games. I think probably my funnest game, or the game that I had the absolute just biggest blast in, was my week 3 game here against Galactic Elliott and the Chicago Cubchoo's. As you can see here, we have some pretty cool sets. I don't know if you can see the Umbreon set. Can you see the Umbreon set? Well, it's Payback as the final move, but like we had Cursed Payback Umbreon, we had Specs Noivern, which modest Specs Noivern, guys. Oh my lord, that thing just it just hits like an absolute truck. This match actually ended up going straight to the timer, but it ended at 59 minutes and 59 seconds. But it was a really good game. It was very back and forth. Me and Elliot were fighting to try and like gain control of the scenarios that we're in. We're trying to gain advantages and put ourselves into perfect positions, and ultimately Umbreon was able to come in and clutch it out. I would recommend you guys check that game out. It's a little bit lengthy, but trust me, it is one hell of a battle. Back to Noivern real quick. I would really like to draft Noivern in a future draft after this season. Obviously, with tier 1 and tier 2s being allowed, there are going to be a bit more fairy types and steel types, but still Noivern has access to moves like Flamethrower. It can switcheroo, cripple fairy types as well. We had a lot of great opponents this season. We ended up playing Dan and Joey, A-Drive and PokeMMD in the regular season, as well as facing them both in the playoffs. Can I just say, I really feel like we had the toughest games in playoffs, because first off, we started with Under the Radar, my good friend Kelly, and his team was absolutely terrifying. He had a sun-based team, which weather in general, I believe in a tier 3 or below format, is kind of scary, along with rain, and we'll get into rain in a second. But sun is very terrifying. Luckily though, we were able to pull out the victory there. Again, Trick Room Slowking was able to come in clutch, and Scarf and Noivern was able to put the team on its back, and was able to finish off the rest of the match there. So we were able to get through round 1 fairly decently enough. And then we had to face Dan in the semifinals, which Dan is no pushover. Dan, aka Drive, is, I guess, considered one of the better players in the format, depending on how you want to rank him compared to other players. But we had to face him, and he had rain this time around, so we were able to get through sun. But now we had to deal with the rain, and the rain matchup was infinitely worse than the sun matchup. So the great thing about this game though was that with our prep and the fact that Dan did not exactly have the best Ghost Resist or Ghost Immunity. Actually, he didn't have a Dark type, and he didn't have a normal type whatsoever. So this was the one matchup where I was able to actually bring Rotom in a serious manner, because throughout this entire season, the only time that I brought Rotom was when it was a meme battle, as you can see here on week 2. And then literally, like, the other times, like, I didn't bring Rotom seriously once, except for playoffs against Dan. And then I never even got to use a cute little Swirlix here, which I'm a little bit upset about, because I would have really liked to bring maybe like Belly Drum or like Calm Mind to a meme battle. If anything, like Sticky Webs might have also still been very handy. Actually, I did consider Sticky Webs against Dan and against Joey, but I figured that the other members that we ultimately had on the final version of the teams were going to be much better than something like Swirlix, because Dan and Joey both had very good, reliable forms of getting rid of the webs. So if I were to get up webs and then they got rid of them, then that ultimately would have hurt me in the long run of the battle. So unfortunately, Swirlix did not come to a single battle, and that is a little bit lame. Actually, I think this is the first time ever that I've not brought all 11 of my Mons to at least one game, or one of each of them to at least one game. So I guess that's another little thing to add in there for this P4G season. But we were able to get through Dan. Luckily, it came down to him either Swords Dancing on my Nidoking or going for the Liquidation, which if he did Liquidation, I still had my Trick Room Gourgeist in the back. Gourgeist lived a Continental Crush into an Aqua Jet in the rain, so we would have been able to tank the Continental Crush, get up the Trick Room, and then at that point a Z Phantom Force knocked out Rotom after rocks. We knocked out the Tornadus and the Kabutops, 2 stealth rocks, and even then I could have potentially Destiny Bonded something to take it down with me, and I still had a decent bit of my team in the back. So it really wasn't a 50-50, but I can see how people might have seen it as a 50-50. Regardless though, we're in a really good position at that point, and we're able to ultimately pull out the victory to go to the finals against Joey, Pokeaim MD. He ended up facing John, aka Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken, and then he ended up facing not Sycamore, Professor FX. Pokemon, I think, actually would have won the battle if Joey didn't get a damage roll with E-Speed, and then Professor FX absolutely tossed Greg in their playoff match. So I really thought Professor FX had a good chance to beat Joey, but Joey ultimately was able to show why he is such a scary player, and he was able to pull out the victory in the end. And then we're able to face in the finals, and I've known Joey for years. Like, I think I want like 8 years, maybe like 7-8 years I've known Joey. And it was kind of cool to face him in the finals, because we've battled regularly on Wi-Fi back in like 5th gen or like 6th gen, but outside of the UCL, we were never really able to play in Draft League format, and this time we were able to meet in the finals of a league that we were both in. So I thought it was pretty cool, and in the end we were able to pull out the victory, because Slowking is a monster. And actually, the funny thing about Slowking is that if you look at my teams through the regular season here, you will see that I brought Marshtomp more times than I brought Slowking. However though, I brought Slowking all 3 times in my playoff matches. So I thought it was kind of cool. And speaking of Marshtomp, oh my lord, Marshtomp is so stupidly bulky, guys. This thing can just tank hits for days because of the Eviolite. Like, yeah, hold on. No. Okay, here. So yeah, base 70 HP, defense, and Spadef may not look that good on paper, but when you factor in this Eviolite right here, and the fact that Marshtomp is only really weak to grass type moves, this thing is actually very impressive in a tier 3 or below format. Now, would I draft Marshtomp in a regular league? I don't really know. It depends if there's like literally nothing left, and if Marshtomp is the best thing around, then yeah, maybe I will consider drafting it. But this season overall, I think was very good. Tier 3 and below, I actually really like. I like the fact that we were able to use just so many different Pokemon, and so many Pokemon that at times you don't ever see get drafted whatsoever. At the same time though, I can kind of see why tier 3 and below it may not be enjoyed by some people because, again, the lack of fairy types, the lack of steel types, and potentially speedy mons in general means that fast, like flying types or fast Pokemon in general, those speedy mons are able to run attack boosting natures as opposed to those speed boosting natures, which kind of evens them out in a any mon draft, any tier draft, I should say. So for example, like my team right here, these two right here, if you look at my team, I had a humongous gap in my speed tiers, and having a huge gap in your speed tiers is something that can honestly just really cost you in the long run of battles, because in certain matchups, like let's take my match against Joey for example, he was able to easily run Adamant Zydog as opposed to Jolly Zydog, because the only Pokemon that Zydog didn't outspeed were my Noivern and my Salazzle, and then from there my speed drops all the way to base 91 here with my Rotom. So that's that's literally such a giant speed gap. Like look here, this is base 117 to base 91. That's what, 26 speed points. My math is horrible, but that is just such a huge speed gap. And that's something I also did notice in a lot of my matchups against other players, is that speed gap is really problematic. The lack of like defensive fairies and steel types open up the windows for so many good offensive dragons and offensive flying types in general. Also, rock types are absolutely terrifying. Something like Aerodactyl or Lycanroc Dusk, if I'm not mistaken. Lycanroc Dusk was drafted by its regulator, and he was able to use it very, very effectively because of the lack of steel types and the lack of ground types in general. So it was a very interesting season, regardless of what may have happened and what may have not have happened. I would like to definitely do another low tier draft in the future. Let me know if you guys would like to see them. Let me know what potentially your favorite Pokemon from our draft was this season. For me, I honestly have to say that Noivern stole my heart. Noivern just completely blew my expectations out of the water. Out of the water, and it was just an absolute monster throughout the entire season. I had no idea that it would be as good as it was, and I'm so happy that I did end up drafting it. So yeah guys, I think that is going to be the end of the video. We do have our next league starting, I believe, at the end of September. I think like the last week of September, right before October begins. So be on the lookout for that. Draft recaps, a live draft stream for that will be going on. And then I'm not too sure about any other leagues that I will be joining. I'll be talking about another potential league in my GBA D League in my GBA D League season 4 recap, so you guys can check that out tomorrow, hopefully. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy, hammer arm that thumbs up button down below. Ladies and gentlemen, we are your champions of the P4G. Oh, look at that. That looks nice, doesn't it? So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later. So later, everybody.
No matter where you're at, I'm not here to make friends. It's time to attack and deplete your HP with a final smash. Don't make me turn around and pull a 6ft six foot hacks, yeah. 6ft hacks, yeah. 6ft hacks.